What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, and well, as y'all know, here on the Crew 2, the Season 7, Episode 1 of the Into the Storm update did drop, and so far I feel like it's going pretty well with the community, because now we can actually buy the motor passes with in-game money, but nonetheless, also with the update, we also got a lot of new summits as well, so for the first week, we're going to have the Pontiac Addict here, which I will jump into this summit here in a quick second to go over the events and all that good stuff, but besides that, we're also going to have the Fame Magnet boosted in the Platinum reward there, so it looks like it's going to have followers and maybe Pure or something on there, so you could change that second stat on the Fame Magnet set to having that on Bucks. I would say that's probably going to be the better option, because you're most likely not going to be looking for Nitrous. And then in gold, we have the Pontiac Firebird, which obviously is indeed going to fit it because it's kind of the Pontiac Addict. And then we're also going to have the Pontiac GTO the Judge, which I do believe is just giving you some parts that are already in the game so you don't have to pay for them. But now moving over to next week's summit is going to be the Cityscape, which I do think is going to be pretty awesome. We're going to have the Police Nitro and Platinum. I cannot wait to see how that one is going to look. And then in gold we have the legendary half set boosted for the Street class, which unfortunately is going to be another Nitro Chemist set. But the reason why I say unfortunately is I'm pretty sure nobody's going to actually want those affixit stats on the Nitro Chemist set, but taking a look at the Summit though, I feel like this one is going to be pretty awesome. In the Street class, we're going to have the Shelby GT500 Interception unit, which I do believe that might be a new vehicle. Honestly, I could be tripping out, but and not only that, the summit also looks like it's going to have a nice mix of events, which I do think is going to make this one a lot more fun. A lot of no restriction races in here, so it'll give a lot of players a chance to use vehicles they actually want to. But moving over to the next summit is going to give us a demolition derby car, which we have not had in a while. I do believe that's the Baron Raid, which the Fender Charcoal honestly does look pretty sweet. The biggest question is though, how many players are actually going to use that vehicle, because I'm not going to lie, I normally never use the Demolition Derby cars, which if I had to guess, I would say many players are most likely the same way. I really only use them if they're in like a summit or something like that, but who knows? Maybe we'll get like a weird bumper cars update in the future. Can you guys imagine that? And then we're also going to have the Rally Snake skin tire, which does look pretty interesting. And then in silver, we'll have the other part of the legendary half set with really bad affixit stats on that Nitro Chemist set. But now moving over to the next summit is going to be Premio, which always makes me laugh whenever I see Mio in anything, because I always think back to the days of school when I used to bring those with me to flavor my water. In Platinum, we have the Dazzling Tire. That thing is insanely bright and definitely will be interesting to see on the road in the game. And then in gold, though, we're going to have the Rough CTR3 Drag Race Edition. Unfortunately, the Roughs are going to be completely useless in the drag race class because for some odd reason, they can't go over 335 miles an hour, which is kind of hilarious. But in silver, we're going to have the BMW i8 Roadster, which is just going to be some parts. That way you don't actually have to buy them. But now moving right over to the Pontiac Addict Summit here, starting off with the Slalom. So for this one, I did decide to run the Ducati Panigale R. To be honest, guys, you could honestly run any vehicle you would like to on the Slalom here. You pretty much could easily get around 155k running a street car, a hypercar, a rally raid, a touring. It really does depend on what you like to use. I was also running a regular score breaker set on my bike as well, and still easily got 155k. But now moving over to the speed trap this week is going to be in San Francisco, and for this one I'm sure everybody is probably going to run the Corvette Stingray. Do keep in mind though, guys, that this car only does 414 miles an hour. I'm sure I probably did mention that in other videos as well, because the only way to get past that is to actually slipstream somebody. So I did get 376, but to be honest, I'm probably not going to jump back in and try to get a better score. I normally do the speed trap 1 or 2 times and then I basically leave it, because I did notice even the top players are getting around like 135k. So you might end up trying to grind really hard for like an extra 7 to 8,000 points, which I personally don't think it's going to be worth the frustration just to try to get an extra 5 to 7,000 points. And then finally, moving over to the last skill this week is going to be an escape. And for this one is going to be the Sequoia Forest, and well, I actually ended up using a hypercar, which I would say is probably going to be the best option on this one. If you really wanted to, you could probably run something like a drag car, but I would say the hypercar is going to be the best option. Not only are these going to be really fast and can easily get you to around 145,000 points, but luckily they actually handle off-road compared to the drag cars, which can honestly be a nightmare. Now, moving over to the first event in the summit is going to be a touring car race, and for this one, I did end up picking the Koenigsegg CCGT, which I'm not going to lie is probably not going to be the best option for this event. I have been noticing how the CCGT might be a little bit slower than some of the other vehicles, most likely the way the car actually shifts compared to like the Renault and or the Lamborghini Gallardo as well. Even with the Koenigsegg being a little bit worse than some of the better cars in the touring class, I would still recommend giving this thing a shot because the stability and handling on the Koenigsegg is going to be absolutely insane. And now moving over to the second event is going to be a street race, and for this one you do get to drive the Pontiac Firebird TA, and well, to be honest, this car really isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Normally some of these older cars in the game might actually feel a lot slower than like let's say the Lamborghini Gallardo, which I really wonder why that's going to be the case, but regardless though, the Pontiac really isn't all that bad. There is a lot of turns in these races as well, so I would recommend leaving the Pontiac in automatic though because I did find this car a lot easier to drive in automatic, but for some odd reason I did end up running this thing in manual, which was honestly kind of interesting. I would recommend leaving this car in automatic though because I do find some of the 4 speeds to be a lot easier to drive. For some odd reason I did end up doing all these events in the Pontiacs running manual. I really don't know why I did that, but I guess might be the challenge, or maybe I just really like to shift that often, but I really do feel like running these things in automatic are going to make them a lot easier. And now moving over to the Rally Raid race is going to be with the Pontiac GTO the Judge, and what's kind of surprising is this car is actually starting to become one of my favorite Rally Raid cars in the entire game to run. Even though this thing might actually be a 4-speed, I've been finding this car to be really good. It has great handling, stability, the speed's also pretty decent. It does like 170 or so miles an hour, so it can easily keep up with some of the more top-speeded crazy vehicles like the lovely Ford Raptor. One of the biggest reasons why I like the Pontiac so much is probably the way this car actually handles. I've been finding myself going over bumps and or hitting jumps very easily. You also don't find yourself running into nearly as many trees because this car is just that stable. And now moving over to the street race here is going to be with the Pontiac GTO the Judge. I was actually kind of surprised with this vehicle as well because it really didn't do nearly as bad as I thought. And I would say, guys, the biggest tip on this event is if you are running manual around the crazy turns, keep this car in second gear. I notice it can fly around them the easiest in that way. And I also notice the car doesn't like want to spin out and or run into the wall because of the body roll. Obviously, the Pontiac from the 70s and or 80s is not going to be able to handle like something in the modern day era, so it does really make sense. But luckily being able to fly around the turns as fast as possible is going to get you to the better score that you're looking for. And now moving over to the no restriction rallycross race is going to be a race many players are probably going to be pretty familiar with. It is going to be the Temecula Winery special stage, and for this one, I did end up running the Ford Fiesta, which continues to blow my mind every time I drive this car. I'm honestly amazed by the handling and stability of the Ford Fiesta. It may not be as fast as the Mitsubishi and or the Cadillac, but I would go as far as saying that the Ford Fiesta might be in the top 5 for the best rallycross cars in the entire game, and I highly recommend taking a look at this vehicle if you guys maybe wanted something different to drive, or maybe something to add to your collection that can easily be used in these summits. And now moving over to the final event in this summit is going to be on the Dominion Forsberg track, and for this one I did end up running the Lamborghini Huracán LP6104. I wanted to try out the Huracán once again because I did end up using this vehicle and it also did make an appearance in my underrated street car video. So I was like, you know what, let me jump into the Huracán and try this thing out once again. I feel like the Huracan's actually shadowed way behind the Gallardo even though this car is still going to be really good. The handling and stability of the Lamborghini is 100% going to be top tier, and the top speed on this vehicle as well is going to be really good, but I was really surprised with how good this car did on this track, guys, and I really do wish they would add it so you can actually use different vehicles on different events, like being able to use a street car in a touring car event, or maybe a hypercar in like a street race or something like that. I really do feel like that would be a lot of fun and definitely mix up the gameplay overall as well. But let me know if you guys have any questions at all in the comments below. Let's jump right into this summit.